I have a relative that I reported that she was being sexually abused. I went to CDA first and then they instructed me to Sissoko. I went to Sissoko and they instructed me to OCR. OCR instructed me back to CDA and I went to these places. I reported it even to the police officers. Nothing was done. I have a case number and even when I check on the number they said they are still looking into it. And there's nothing that they are doing about it.
Hi, Joy Crawford here from E4Life, co-founder, director of Impact. E4Life is an organization that has very strong commitment to the girl child in Jamaica as far as it concerns her well-being, living with HIV. And about 4 years into our work, we recognize that there's a link between HIV, teenage pregnancy, and sexual violence of the girl child. And we have been very committed to addressing this issue. One of the interventions that we have is what we call our ROAR, R-O-A-R, Restoring Order to All Relationships. It's a program that we have for childhood sexual abuse survivors.
In the event a person was sexually assaulted, we recommend that you report it as soon as possible and try not to change your clothes, bathe, or wash the area where you were assaulted.
It's what if your mother know and say, you have to just continue because I am a support you. You can't do nothing. Report it to my mother, report it to my auntie, report it to the police, they carry me to the hospital, then do all kind of tests. I was speaking to someone from CDA and they continue to say something. Then people want to say, psychiatric want to say, something wrong with you.
In my community, the police themselves, within the school girl, them are involved. So whenever a sexual abuse issue come up in my community, even when it's time for a go to court, statement can't find, this can't find, so everything just sweep under the carpet. Really? Yes.
We have major concerns around, for example, the fact that when a girl is seeking a protective order from someone who is abusing her, that the system doesn't provide the level of protection that she needs, that she's been asked to serve these summons on the perpetrators themselves. We have concerns about the fact that there are girls who are still living in their homes and in communities where the perpetrators are walking free because there's just not enough evidence.
What if the matter is reported to the police and it's also reported to the relevant authorities and church board and all the persons involved, and they said they're going to do a follow-up with you, but nothing was done and you have to live with that person under the same roof?
Well, first of all, if you made a report to the person and the person is living under the same roof,
the police was involved as well.
what I am saying, if it is a case where the perpetrator is living under the same roof, once you come to the station, they shouldn't have let you go home at all. Right? So that is the first step. So that would be a breach, because you're actually sending back the person in the same situation.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Gomes. I'm Executive Director of Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition. We're a grouping of civil society organizations and activists from around the Caribbean region, and we work for the realization of the human rights of populations that are most at risk for HIV and or affected already by HIV. So we have a very great focus on gender-based violence and sexual offenses, because violence based on your gender identity or gender expression is a very, very powerful risk factor for HIV around the Caribbean. Things like the Sexual Offences Act, where the focus is on the orifice penetrated rather than the violence and abuse and demeaning nature of the rape. But it's not called rape if it's not a particular orifice that's penetrated. And that's wrong, and that needs to change.
We also have concern that if a girl doesn't sign the complaint, then they can't go any further. The state hand is tied. So how do we really provide the information to strengthen these girls, teach them what their responsibility are, provide them with the social and the counseling support that they can be strong enough to give the kind of information as required and to show up in court? How do we create the kind of links of protection for them against their households that are the places in which the violence is carrying out?
Here's it that we have an adult who has done due date. We report it, and then if the child does not sign a statement, then you can't move forward. So I mean,
That's a law.
you know,
Right.
so we've given the power to a child who doesn't have the power.
I agree with
You know,
right.
and yet we're saying, even though we know it, without that signed statement from the very same child who don't have the power to make the decision, you can't do your job.
And so the law needs to change to recognize the demeaning, violent and vile nature of rape. That is not sexual abuse, it's rape. We also focus quite heavily on laws that impact on gender expression. So there is violence directed at people who don't meet society's expectations. And there's violence, gender-based violence, perpetrated on young people who are vulnerable.
We must also advocate on a larger scale, calling for an end to social norms. As an organization, from our perspective, apart from the fact that we know that the policies and the laws does not protect the sexual reproductive health and rights of the adolescent, we also believe that on the ground there's a need for the law to be known. There's a big gap in information. And if people don't have the information, they don't know how to respond. So one of the things that we believe that there needs to be a real, more community-based information giving sessions, that the materials that are available need to be made to be user-friendly to the communities, that we need to have campaigns that are sustained beyond after a particular incident, but sustained over months and years to change our culture.
There's no limit. So even if 10, 20 years ago, you can still make a report.
Laws alone does not solve the problem. We need to have people on board so that when the laws are there, then they can actually be effective.
When we have a failure to provide our young people with the knowledge to protect themselves against sexually transmitted diseases, the tools and knowledge to negotiate safe sex when they are vulnerable. And these are things that need to change. We need to be protecting our young people. We need to be protecting all of our people equally, because each one of us, regardless of the gender on the birth certificate or the gender on the clothing or the gender identity or the vulnerability, each of us deserves equal protection. And so we have a lot of work to do. We have to work to educate the duty bearers, the police, the courts, to treat these things seriously, to treat them with respect and with protection and with empowerment. We need to be building the knowledge base of our teachers so that they can talk to our kids, can inform them, can train them, can give them the information they need to protect themselves from violence, from gender-based violence, and from abuse, sexual abuse perpetrated on them.